Thank you for waiting for, I don't know, 2 hours and 44 minutes to ask a question that I probably am not gonna have an answer to. I hope Paul does.
Thank you, Captain Inboss, and the second best call related to religion. I'm sorry.
I'll
Um,
take it.
I am I'm having an issue when it comes to because I've started encountering a lot of people who are Orthodox Christians who want to debate morality more often than not. And they always try to apply to this thing that's tangential to metaphysics and is the same thing, which is like, from my understanding, metaphysical things are like abstracts that exist purely in our brain and that we express them. And we have labeled them metaphysics because it is just a subset of mental tools that we have and functions that we've identified. But the people I'm talking to seem to think that there is this like magical reality that is above our minds and that our brains somehow interact with this transcendent reality to grab metaphysics and like put them into our brain. I'm really confused by this, and I'm just hoping somebody can help me figure this out because if I'm the asshole, I want to know.
Do you possibly mean meta-ethics instead of metaphysics?
They keep claiming metaphysics, but that could be just a mistake on them because like they're like pretending there's a transcendent reality they get like metaphysical concepts from, that because you can't physically measure metaphysics that it must be in some transcendent realm.
Okay. Um, do your it's tough because your friends aren't here, right? So we're guessing at this point as to what they may mean in these things that I agree. If you've described it correctly, sounds rather tenuous. Obviously, I mean, things you can ask your friends are: do you think that morality? Like, you need to get on the same page about what morality is. If morality is how humans behave towards other humans, if that's what morality is, then how can that even be a thing on a realm where there are no humans, right? Like, if before the first human, before the first life on earth, was there morality if you define it as how humans treat other humans? That seems ridiculous to me. After the heat death of the universe, is there morality? Also seems ridiculous to me. So I don't understand if that's how we're talking about morality. That is a thing that can possibly be on some plane where we are not. So that's a question you can ask them. If they are defining morality in some other way, then it's possible you're just talking past each other, in which case you're not having a productive conversation anymore. So did they give you some kind of definition of morality that you can anchor any of this to? Or are they going
Yeah,
purely
so
on intuition?
it seems to be they are like making metaphysics like synonymous with morality. And so when they talk about morality, they're like that in that same realm. That's where metaphysics are. And it's specifically, this is a debate forum to where I am speaking to people because I'm trying to figure out things myself and exposing myself to other ideas. And it seems to be that like to them, their morality, it's that presuppositionalist thing of where like there is this transcendent objective morality. And that's where we're getting it from. So this transcendent being, wherever that transcendent being is, that's where that transcendent realm is, which is where it's all beamed into us. And that's where they grab these things from. And when I ask them, like, why is it that with absence a brain that there is no mind like readily available in the world, like we have no evidence of this being a thing, that all our logical processes would naturally follow inside the brain. And since we can't demonstrate anything beyond that, it would be foolhardy to assert that there is some sort of divine realm where we get morality and abstract ideas from. It almost strikes me like Platonism a little bit, or like the whatever you call it, where like you're discovering forms, or you're just like, is the statue inside the marble, that sort of shit. And I've been
I can't pretend.
beating my head
Yeah,
up
I
against
can't
the
pretend
wall,
to be
and like
I can't pretend to be super well versed on philosophy stuff on a lot of these things. But for me, morality is just so simple. I don't understand all these complications of it. If morality is how humans behave toward, if it speaks to how humans treat other humans, then other planes can't possibly come into it, right? Then
Right.
if one agrees that morality is about reducing harm and increasing flourishing, and you don't even need that second part, even maybe just decreasing harm, uh, no other plane need be applied to evaluate whether one set of actions causes more harm than another set of actions, right? You can argue that entirely on our plane. So if it was me, I would keep nailing them to what their definition of morality is, and if they at all agree with this grounded version of morality, which is the only version I care about. I don't care about other weird versions that may exist on other planes where humans don't exist. Then then you're just not then you're just gonna be talking past each other, and it's going to be frustrating. So I don't
Yes.
I don't know. Does that make
And
sense?
it absolutely does. I was just so flabbergasted by it because this is the seventh person that is I have reached this like impasse of okay, so how do you measure emotions? Like where are emotions? Are they in the brain or are they in the soul? And is it like abstracted from a transcendent reality? And like I'm starting to wonder if this is like a new presuppositionalist like argumentation method or like something new they're trying to take a stance on because I keep having it reappear and I'm just confused and I was wondering if there's something I'm missing personally when it comes to metaphysics that like when you talk about metaphysics is it necessarily like in a religious context because I've never got that impression. And so like when we're talking about metaphysics is that like a supernatural concept that they're putting on like actual processes that we experience in our brain or is metaphysics like I thought it was which was just a categorization of all of these abstract concepts. And
That
so
you'd
I
have to
figured
ask
there was
them.
maybe some
You'd
lack
have to ask
of
them because
awareness
it
in
can
my
be
What
applied.
difference does it make?
and none effectively was just clarifying if I made some sort
So
of error.
if we're gonna have any kind of conversation about morality, let's go with something simple. I would say it is immoral to sexually assault another person. Why do I say that? If somebody wants to think that I say that because in some other being in some other meta dimension has some sort of ontology that makes it thus and so, and I'm just borrowing from that, okay, I don't know how you're going to prove that. But at the end of the day, if you and I agree that it is immoral to sexually assault someone, we add in whatever other circumstances you want, then the question then becomes not what is the source of morality, but can you and I correctly discern morality? Doesn't matter if it comes from a god, doesn't matter if it comes from a dimension, doesn't matter if it comes from some arbitrary foundation, it doesn't matter if it comes from assuming that life is generally preferable to death and that health is generally preferable to sickness. It doesn't matter any of that. The first question is it possible for you and I to come to a correct moral understanding? And if the answer is yes, then it doesn't matter if the ultimate foundation of morality is your God or not. And no argument for God based on morality can ever work because we've already demonstrated God is unnecessary for morality. If you and I can reach correct conclusions, this gets back to a version of the Euthyphro dilemma, which, yes, the Euthyphro dilemma was originally about piety, but the moral version of it is, does God say something because it's moral, or is something moral because God says so? If God says so because it's already moral, then God is irrelevant to morality. And another way to look at that is if we can discern this without relying on God, then God is irrelevant to morality. But if morality is merely what God says, then you have divine command theory, which means God's going to be right no matter what we think. And there is no foundation to make a moral argument that a being that you have no interaction with is always right about morality, because you don't have access to that being's mind or thoughts on morality at all. All you have access to are what some people are saying about that God. So God is irrelevant to morality.
100%. I think I got the answer I
99%.
was looking for. Okay,
Cool.
99%. I am super confident.
I'm
But
pretty
thank you
damn.
both for your time.
Thanks, Virgil.
Thank you, Virgil.
I'm
I
sorry,
don't
Matt.
think you're missing
I didn't mean to
anything.
interrupt.
No, you're fine. I was sitting there with my hand, and I noticed that Stephanie, I looked like I had an ice cream headache. Not yet, but I will later, because I'm definitely going to have some ice cream later. Yeah, I was desperately trying to figure out the nuts and bolts behind that, and you guys were both talking and hitting it, and I'm like, I'm just going to stay out of it until some sort of clarity materializes in my head.